You're in control of what your body's doing. You're in control of the technical stuff like diction and volume and being heard, but you're also trying to get this sort of mysterious thing of connection with your character and with the other people on stage, and it becomes more of a job. But there is, I think, a different but arguably bigger sense of fulfillment when you come off stage and you know that you've done that job.
Hello, my name is Eline Perez and you're listening to Are You an Artist? Today's episode is with James Newton, who speaks about theatre making, blinking too much on camera, faith and clubs and festivals. James is fantastic. He speaks loudly, which is perfect because my software crashed and didn't save the recording. But because I'm super professional, I had a backup. So the quality of the sound will be slightly different, but the quality of the conversation will be perfect. I don't have very much, but I can offer you an ice cream if you want.
I'm good for now, but maybe it can be my reward at the end.
Yeah,
at the end.
Great.
That's something for me to push towards.
Okay, so you know that I start with a letter.
With a letter.
Have you listened to Theo's episode?
Yeah. A letter?
I write a letter for the guest, which I read out loud.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realise that you actually read it to them. I thought you just put that on afterwards.
Well, I put the introduction, but then it's like the introduction after the introduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So, your introduction.
Okay, I'm ready.
Dear James, when we met, you were acting at Wilton's Music Hall for the production Moby Dick. To know more about your profile as a professional podcast interviewer, I googled your name. And I found what may be your biggest problem in life. There are too many James Newton on this planet. You are not the American jazz and classical flutist, nor the partner in the business restructuring plus insolvency group. So you must be the actor, theatre maker, musician and facilitator who also studied a MA in anthropology.
Hey, that's me.
You are talented, clever, funny and kind, but the question is, are you an artist?
I'm going to say yes, but yeah, as you pointed out, there are many other James Newtons, and maybe I'm not the foremost artistic James Newton. You also missed out James Newton Howard.
Yeah.
James Newton Howard, who's like, I think he's top of the James Newton Artist Club.
Yeah. He's the film producer, no?
He's
documentary.
A composer.
Oh, the composer.
Yeah.
Because there is also a documentary. I was so confused. But he's German, I think, this guy I'm mentioning. Yeah, so there is this composer.
Yeah.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, so I am an artist, but I've got a long way to go until I am the James Newton artist.
So on a scale from 0 to 10 of the James Newtons, where would you put yourself?
I mean, it sounds like you know better than me because you've done a deep dive into the James Newton. I'm gonna put myself at 6, maybe an optimistic 7.
Yeah.
Doing well, but places to go.
Yeah, maybe 7.5.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice, I love that.
How do you define artists?
That's a really good question, and I've sort of been like turning over it in my head a bit since you kindly asked me to come on this podcast. I think that an artist, has some sort of process. I think that anyone can do art, can make art, but I think an artist is someone who's spent time into developing how they approach it. Mm-hmm. I think it's also when you are able to use whatever your chosen art form is as like a language, as a real proper way to communicate, as a way to say something that you wouldn't be able to say without, I guess.
Yeah. Can you do that through acting? Say things that you wouldn't be able to say otherwise.
Acting, I think some actors can. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an actor first and foremost. Mm-hmm. I'd consider myself a theatre maker. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been doing that for 13 years.
So what does it mean, theatre maker?
That's also a really good question.
Because it's the first time I'm coming across this.
Yeah, it's, and I've had to think about that a lot as well recently because I last year set up a degree program in Bristol, and it's called theatre making. I have a feeling that it is a fairly niche term. I think a lot of people in Bristol use it. A lot of people in fringe and more experimental theatre use it.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to put definition to it. I would say that a theatre maker is someone who sort of makes original work, but isn't necessarily just a writer. It's different from someone who writes a play and then puts it on. Often we're still making plays, but we are maybe in charge of all elements of that and are making that in a way that might include lots of improvisation, lots of devising, sort of trying to combine all of the different languages that theatre encompasses to make a story.
Nice. And what kind of child were you?
What kind of child was I?
Were you already creating stuff?
Do you know what? I was an only child, so I think, as with lots of only children, you're having to sort of use your imagination to entertain yourself. And I think there are sort of tapes of me when I was very young, like pretending to read the news, and at Christmas I would sort of go away and my grandma would dress me up as Father Christmas.
Wow.
And then I would come in this full Father Christmas garb and hand out presents to everyone, really commit to the bit, and then get unchanged and come back in and was like, hey guys, what's going on? Oh, anyone just see that guy who went out? I don't know. So I think
it's so funny.
I think that I had this sort of urge in me from quite early on. And it was I listened to a bit of Theo's podcast before I came here, and he was talking about shyness, and that the sort of, I think the impetus for me doing this actually came from my mum, who was really incredibly shy while she was growing up. And so I think she saw that there was this sort of spark of enjoying entertaining in me, I guess. And yeah, she was the one that put me on to drama club when I was sort of 4 or 5. And
oh, wow.
Who signed me up to...
Super young.
Really young. I was going there from 4 or 5.
I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, so it will be... I barely remember, but at that age, it's a lot of games.
You are a tree.
Yeah.
I am a flower.
Exactly. I imagine it's fairly chaotic. And then, there was, where I grew up in Clevedon, there was an amateur group called Great Western Youth Theatre that had, at the time, a sort of 5+ year waiting list. So she signed me up to that when I was super young. And I think I joined that when I was sort of 8 or 9 or 10. So the first time I was on stage performing in front of an audience, although at sort of an amateur level, it was still in like a big community hall with, a proper curtain and wings and a dressing room. And yeah, I got the taste for being on stage really, really young. And that is thanks to my mum, and as a way to sort of combat shyness again. Interesting that Theo said he'd spoken to a lot of other actors that had talked about shyness as well.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not sure it cures shyness necessarily. It enables you
Maybe it's a way to deal with it, or like to kind of...
Yeah, I can't remember what Theo said, but it was... The way you two spoke about it was really interesting. Like, you have to... It's a way of, like, building yourself up bigger, or presenting a sort of exaggerated version of yourself to overcome maybe, like, a deep insecurity.
And how did you decide to do this professionally?
There was never really anything else that I was interested in enough to pursue. I think everyone tosses up their options, and my other sort of interest was writing. I think I considered journalism for a bit when I was in 6th form.
Okay.
But then we did a visit to the Bristol Post, the local newspaper, and about 1 hour there, I was like, hell no.
Wow.
This seems awful.
How was it?
I just remember it being like really uptight, like office environment.
You sit down.
Like very sort of clinical.
Yeah.
And I probably had this romanticized idea in my head of sort of roaming out in the field and with your little dictaphone.
With a feather.
Exactly. Writing with a feather, wandering around with your magnifying glass, looking for clues.
You look cool with a suit.
Yeah, wearing a trilby. Yeah, and I think that was all I ever really wanted to do. And then I took a gap year and I did a programme at the Bristol Vic Theatre, which I've been a part of the young company of since I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Made in Bristol and it's still running today. And that was 2 days a week training with a slot in the studio at the end. So in that year, all 10 of us who were on that course formed a company and made a show called Riot, which was about a riot that happened at an Ikea in North London.
Okay.
In 2005, midnight opening, everyone, like 10,000 people showed up, people fighting for sofas, someone was stabbed, you know.
Wait, so what, this happened?
This happened, yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, this happened, and now we made that in
Why?
2011. Just people fighting for really cheap deals, cheap IKEA furniture.
But why coming at midnight?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it's sort of like trying to build up this sort of excitement around a grand opening.
Oh, it was the opening.
It was the opening of the new IKEA, which is now actually Drum Sheds in Tottenham, a big club. And yeah, they just completely were not prepared for the amount of people.
That is mad.
It is mad, but we made that 13 years ago, and it's now way less mad than it was when we made it.
Yeah.
That's a fairly common
true.
story now.
Yeah. It's just people.
But yeah, we made that and we took that to Edinburgh in 2011 and it blew up, did really well. And then half of us were going off to uni and drama school after that. So it's sort of like there was never really a decision to do it. That started some momentum with the company. And then I kept doing that in all of my holidays whilst I was studying. I was studying European Theatre Arts at Rose Bruford. So again, sort of teaching you to be a theatre practitioner as opposed to a straight actor. So yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things where you often catch yourself being like, did I choose to do this? Or did things just start happening and you respond to those things and just sort of unthinkingly follow a path.
And music? Do you make music or?
I play the trombone, play the bass, and I do make music. I've composed for a few shows.
Ooh.
And I played in orchestra when I was a teenager, on the second trombone. But I'm not someone who sort of spends their free time sort of creating. It's always, so I think that the are you an artist question, I'm not like a true artist in the sense, well, like so your videos, for instance, it seems like whenever you've got some free time you'll take yourself to somewhere nice and you'll dance.
Well, I do that once a week, so
yeah, but that's still, you know, you're setting aside time to sort of develop yourself as an artist and to create. And I never do that outside of a sort of, it's always within a work context.
But maybe it's because I don't have opportunities to do it in a work context that I do it outside as well. Maybe if I was proper like working, I wouldn't. Like, I would have free time doing other stuff. But because I have jobs where I just serve pints and, you know... Of course, in my free time, I set that time to do, like, that...
I mean, I don't think you should underestimate that, because I've had plenty of times where I'm just working in a pub or working in a shop. I actually find that I do very... There's not even one ounce of me that is like, oh yeah, I must I must sit down and write, or I must sit down and compose a song. There's just no, I wish there was impetus there, because I'm sure I would love it if I managed it. But there's nothing. All I have the sort of urge to do is like sit around.
What do you do when you have free time?
Very little, but I don't have very much free time. So whenever that happens, I just love to do nothing. Just sort of lie around on my bed, go out, wander around, have a coffee, read my book, go and see some mates, go to the pub. Yeah, very little.
So you only write and create stuff when you have projects, or?
Yeah, there have been times when I've found, actually, I lived in Berlin for a year, and when I was there and had a bit more time and space and was only working as a waiter, then I got into a really good rhythm of just going to a cafe and writing for an hour.
Okay,
so it could, you're right, maybe it could be something about the circumstances that you find yourself in. I think I'm also, I've been in the Wardrobe Ensemble, the company, for my entire adult life. I was 18 when we formed. So it means that and we've always been making stuff for an audience. So it means that my entire understanding of what it is to make something has always been geared towards it being for someone else. You're always thinking about how someone else is going to perceive it. You're always thinking about how you're going to sell it. I think it's probably in maybe a slightly unhealthy way, always been wrapped up in thinking of the final thing as a product.
I see, yeah.
So although I'm really into process and the importance of the steps that you take along the way, and that's everything that I try and teach on the degree programme, there's something that I'm having to slightly unlearn in terms of treating what you make as a thing to present to other people and for them to judge and for you to sell, basically.
Do you have a favorite part of that creative process then, or?
Always the start.
Just the start, yeah.
Always the start, the R&D process, research and development.
Okay.
And I'm really lucky that as of next week, I've got 4 weeks of different R&Ds lined up for different projects. And that, when you're just in a room and everything's up for grabs and any idea is valid and you can go off in any direction that comes to you, and you're not having to get down to the nitty-gritty of working out the fine details, of making sense of what you've made, of rehearsing it, of like ironing out the kinks, of making it presentable. That's always the best bit.
And what do you like in acting?
Acting is a really interesting one for me. I think everyone gets into acting because they have those early experiences of like this insane adrenaline rush. And Theo was talking a little bit about this as well, I think. You get into it and you get sort of addicted to this mad thrill, and then you do it more and you do it more and you do it more and you do it more, and the thrill gradually goes. And I would say that I've been on stage a lot now, and that I almost never get nervous anymore.
Wow.
No matter how big the gig, there'll be some nerves in the first show.
Yeah.
And they'll quickly go. And then after that, there's none of that sort of mad buzz to pull you along. However, the flip side of that is you can treat it as more of as an artistic practice, and you're in control of what you're doing. You know, you're in control of what your body's doing. You're in control of the technical stuff like diction and volume and being heard, but you're also trying to get this sort of mysterious thing of connection with your character and with the other people on stage, and it sort of becomes more of a job, but there is, I think, a different but arguably bigger sense of fulfillment when you are going through it and you do your job you come off stage and you know that you've done that job to the best of your ability.
Yeah. And in Moby Dick, you were switching characters also.
Yeah, I was sort of 3 different characters.
How was that? How easy is that now for you? Like to just...
I mean, I love doing multi-rolling stuff. I just had a ball in Moby Dick, as I hope you could tell, because there's so little of myself that I had to put into it. Maybe I could have put more of myself into it, but people like Guy, who played Ahab, people like Tom playing Queequeg, Mark, who played Ishmael, they're there and they're having to give something of themselves for the audience. There's some sort of emotional, they've got to tap into something there.
Yeah.
And that can leave you quite tired, whereas I'm there sort of at the sidelines to give energy, to keep the pace going, to hopefully create sort of some moments of lightness and just commit really hard to all of these different like sort of broad caricatures. And I love doing that. And I love on stage just sort of that sense of ensemble, like any sort of set piece when everyone is working together, like the bit at the end of Act 1 when they're killing the whale. Those are always my favourite bits to do. It's I think the way that my experience of acting has been pretty different compared to lots of actors.
Have you acted for a camera?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little. And when I've tried, I've been really bad.
Oh.
I've got so much respect for...
Do you understand why you...
Because I'm so used to performing to the back row. So I remember I briefly had an agent and I got an audition for Succession, the TV series, for the waiter that is killed at the end of series 1. Have you seen it?
No, I don't watch series of movies that much.
And I went to this audition super nervous because I had no experience of camera acting whatsoever.
Yeah.
That did give me big nerves. And I did one take and the casting director very kindly went, you do a lot of theatre, don't you? I'm like, yes, I do. And she's like, okay, so you don't need to shout. And just everything you're doing, just dial it right down. Oh, wow. And I've done maybe 2 short films in my life, and watching it back, you realise it may as well be a completely different a different profession entirely.
Yes.
It's so about the tiny details and the little widening of the eyes when you blink, and I'm a real over blinker.
Oh, so you would blink a lot?
I blink a lot when I'm on camera.
That'd be so funny.
It's weird. It's so weird. No sense of doing it while at the time, and then you watch it back, and I'm just there going.
Do you know why?
No, I didn't.
That's almost, maybe it's the light, no? Too much light.
It could be the light
on stage also.
I think it's. I've got no idea. But then you watch it back, and then you try and go the other way, and you're like, why is this guy not blinking? This is turning into a really intense performance. From a really nervous performance to a really intense performance.
So funny.
But, it's...
You should do absurd TV shows.
I know.
Just weird characters.
30 minutes of me blinking or not blinking.
Contemporary art.
Yeah.
Performances. Wow. Do you feel like it changed the way you are in life? Doing acting on stage, do you speak louder? Do you express yourself more easily, or can you lie more easily?
Can I lie more easily?
Yes.
I'm an awful liar.
Are you?
Yeah, it's definitely not helped me in that respect.
Okay.
I think that it has changed me. I would say less the actual sort of acting, but the process of theatre making, of the way that I'm used to making theatre is really collaborative. And there's 9 of us in the company. So you're often having to have like really in-depth discussions with 9 people. So sort of, and we're running the company as 9 people. There's no one artistic director. We're having to navigate all of these decisions collectively, which is like, can be so frustrating. And it's like having a big group of siblings that you know super well. So you love them.
You almost need to know a bit about psychology or something to kind of...
Completely. It's really a lot about sort of your interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
But I think I've taken so much from doing this into my life about sort of how to look at the world, how to think about things in a balanced way. I think I have now like very few strongly held opinions, because it makes you very used to listening to different sides of an argument. Sometimes probably too few strongly held opinions.
Yeah. Don't you get... I have this problem, sometimes I get confused with, I don't know what I really think
100%.
about things, because I'm like, oh yeah, I agree with this person, but I also agree with this person. And of course, this person has a point.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what?
And sometimes you've got to go like, you know, Trump is evil. and
Yeah.
And that's it. But it's so easy for me to still get caught up in like, yeah, but I guess when you look at it from his side, like he is talking about like NATO, and he like things he said about NATO are sort of valid and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you can just sort of become a bit of a surfer in life.
Yeah.
You know, those times when you meet someone when you're on holiday and you get chatting to them, and then it takes about half an hour, and then the racist comment will come, or the sexist comment will come.
Yes.
And like I'm really bad at like calling that out when it has to be called out, because I'm just so used to be like, okay, I'm gonna give this person a hearing, and I'm gonna see what they have to say, and or okay, that's one part of them, but what's good about them. But I think there are times when you it makes you too passive.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's hard.
Have you've done some psychology, it seems.
I just look at people a lot, and I think I'm just super like yeah, I really like to listen to people, and I read a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but then I listen to a lot of opinions and experiences, and I get the point of so many people, and I'm like, oh.
So, are you an artist?
Am I an artist?
Yeah.
I mean, I was saying that with a dance friend. Here we say very easily that you can be a dance artist. It's quite common. But in France, saying that you're an artist means that you have a super ego. Like, you can't call yourself an artist in France. So in London, I would be comfortable saying I'm an artist because I do so many creative things. And I practice also a lot. But not in France.
So in London you're an artist, but in France you're not an artist.
No, in France I'm weird.
It's really, yeah, it's interesting. What was it Theo said on the last episode? He was like, some days I am and some days I'm not.
Can't remember.
And I think that's quite true. Like so much of it depends on
that's true.
On the context that you find yourself in. And that's really been true post-COVID, actually.
Yeah.
Last year especially was absolutely like the worst year I've ever had, work-wise. And that's true for a lot of people. And I've had a lot of conversations with people over the last year. Once they're sort of, you know, like if you work in theatre and that sort of thing, that becomes such a big part of your identity. So when that work starts to drop away, you're sort of left going like, who am I? Like, what do I do? What do I tell people when I introduce myself?
Yes.
Which is shit, because it's like, in an ideal world, it shouldn't whether you're an artist or not shouldn't depend on like whether you're being employed or not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's the thing. I do a lot of stuff, but I'm not paid for what I do. But now I focus more on the practice.
Yeah.
And it feels quite healthy.
Mm.
And I want to do some stage stuff, but a bit later. So I feel like right now, but maybe then it's winter and I'm depressed and I think I'm not.
Yeah. That's it. You really, I think you're completely right in terms of focusing on the practice and the doing of it instead of what you're making. And I think theatre is a really hard one to do that. I mean, if you're a dancer, then you're able to take yourself to these beautiful places and dance for an hour. If you're a painter, you can lock yourself away in your studio and paint. But theatre is so, like, it doesn't really exist without an audience. I mean, there are some theatre practitioners that...
I thought maybe it would be funny you create yourself characters.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, today I'm going to go out and be this person. And then you meet people and you completely lie. So that's why I was asking about lying. So then you can practice your acting skills.
See, that has again, you're proving yourself more of an artist than me, because that's literally never occurred to me. To just go out into the world and lie.
I never really did it, but I lied once in Italy because there was this Italian man who came. I was on my own, like writing, and he came and I was like, how can I get rid of him? Because he started to talk, and talk and then trying to seduce me. So then I say that I was married, like I really invented completely myself a life. So I was married to this woman called Maya, who was waiting for me in London.
Yeah.
And like, really, I created this whole life. And I kind of started to really like Maya because I kept speaking about her and I was like, what the hell am I?
Oh, she's amazing. My imaginary wife is
I'm
so
very
cool.
lucky.
So how did you feel when you were doing that? Because that sort of what you're describing there stresses me out.
Well, it was super easy because I was in Italy on my own, so like nobody knew me, And this guy was also very much of a macho, telling me how he's doing this and that and that. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was feeling like he was lying a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was just a game.
It was.
And I'm like,
lie off.
Let me play the game.
Do you feel like you did a sort of element of reinventing yourself when you moved to this country?
Yeah, it was more undoing, a lot of undoing, because I think I was very blocked, even in my body, in dance and everything. I was very stiff. And I was super aware of my image, of how people look at me all the time.
Yeah.
Which is really not healthy. So it would block me also dancing, because I was so aware of every little mistake and not being good enough. So yeah, it's like it was slow, but then like discovering like practices like yoga, improvisation, shaving my hair, all that.
I remember you talking to me about shaving your hair at Wilton's.
It was nice.
Yeah. And that felt like something that you were able to do here that you weren't necessarily able to do in France.
And now I'm more comfortable in France, but here was the place to do it. Super easy. Because people don't look at you in London. So you can do...
No one gives a shit.
No. That's why you can create characters. Tell you, that's next time you have a free day.
If you're going to do it in anywhere, then do it in London, because people will not bat an eyelid.
If you could create a character, who would you be?
Oh, man. I've got no idea. No idea. One character that I was going to sort of inhabit for a long time. I don't know. Maybe it would be like someone of a much higher class than me.
Okay.
I think so. My girlfriend Hannah is really into sort of true crime podcasts.
Okay.
I like corporate embezzlement, and she loves, what is it, the Elizabeth Holmes story?
Okay.
Like con artists. Mm-hmm. But I think these mad stories of people that can sort of like con their way into a different life and just lie their way into sort of circulating with the upper echelons of society. That's fascinating. Yeah. But I think I would get scared. Uh-huh. As I've already mentioned, I'm terrible at lying, so I think they would catch me out very quickly.
I think I can be sometimes also, like, Yeah, I couldn't really steal. Although I stole like a chewing gum in Waitrose.
No. Police!
That's good that not many people listen to this. But then, you know, I would not be able to. I know some people that are so able to steal stuff, and I would just. The first person who looks at me, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, no, too scared. So what drove you to this heinous act?
It was really stupid. So I was like, I want. So I took this box of chewing gum, like very small, you know, like this plastic free that they have now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I thought I was going to buy it. And then I was like, I'm going to have one now because I'm going to buy it. And I had one and it was not so good. So I was like, oh, it's not good. I'm not going to pay £1. So then I put the box back.
You put the box back on the shelf. So you didn't even steal the whole packet.
I stole one chewing gum.
You stole one chewing gum from a packet and then put the packet back. I mean, A, that's weird. And B, I think you've actually committed a worse crime there than if you just taken the fucking packet.
Someone's gonna buy a pack of chewing gum with one missing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's how our society works. You just like eat a bit of whatever you're thinking about, and they're like, actually no. Put that pasta back. Take a bite of the prep sandwich. Oh no, I don't like cheese and pickle. Let me try some of the chicken and bacon. No, I don't like that either.
I felt so proud of myself though. I'm like, no to capitalism.
That was your big subversive act.
Yeah.
Very impressive, very weird.
So I feel a bit like a thief now.
Mm.
Do you have artists who inspire you?
Yeah. So I was really into Stanley Kubrick, like particularly in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the stuff that I was sort of making around my dissertation, when you're sort of first thinking about your own practice and how to do it, was I did mine on 2001: A Space Odyssey. And
was it your MA dissertation or the one?
That was my BA dissertation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big influence. There's sort of, in terms of careers I'd like to have, Willem Dafoe is a big one. Because he started in a very experimental theatre group in New York called the Wooster Group. So he was involved in a sort of similar way of working to me, but then he found his way into huge Hollywood roles like the Green Goblin in Spiderman, but also really experimental art house roles like The Lighthouse and was it Antichrist he was in, where everyone saw his dick?
And I don't know. I really don't watch films or series. That's why I ask people for recommendations, so then I can check out what's happening.
I don't think Antichrist is I would necessarily recommend, but it was black and white, and I think Lars von Trier, I think it was Antichrist, and yeah, very graphic.
Okay.
So he got a bit of a reputation from that for being well endowed, let's say. But that's not why he's an inspiration. He's had the sort of like varied career that I would love to have.
Okay, yes. He looks rich.
Yes.
Like you get a lot from different experiences and...
Exactly, and you can, and he sort of has found this lovely balance of doing the stuff for love and the stuff for money.
Exactly,
But the stuff he does for money still is really fun.
Yeah,
like the Green Goblin, Spiderman, amazing. And then there's just loads of peers in the theatre industry that I sort of have worked with and I would always want to work with again. Like everyone in the Wardrobe Ensemble are sort of artistic inspirations in different ways. I made a show with a friend of mine, Tom, for Edinburgh last year, and we took it up there, and that was really sort of stripped back to basics. That was just the two of us. We made it on sort of a very small budget. We just borrowed £1,000 from my friend Henry, made this play in a week, took it up, and it was sort of, the process of doing that was brilliant in terms of stripping away that sort of who are we making this for and treating it as a product, because there was so little time and so little resources, we had to make it for ourselves. And we had to follow our interest in the room. But it was so refreshing to go up there and watch all this stuff and meet all of these people, and just sort of, we just found ourselves being inspired every single day. And it was there was loads and loads of talent out there, and people making really interesting stuff, and people who are phenomenal actors and phenomenal directors and writers, and it's still bubbling away, even though the industry is a bit fucked at the moment. I think everyone in the theatre industry is currently feeling pretty hopeless. Maybe there's a bit more hope with the new Labour government, I don't know. But it was a lovely reminder that there's inspirational people everywhere, and people are going to find a way to make stuff, whether the money is there or not.
Yeah, it's so important to have these inspirations. I feel like, So.
And it's very easy to feel sort of a bit isolated in this profession, and a bit like you're in this rat race against everyone else in limited resources, and you're just on your own in your little rooms making your little thing that barely anyone will see. But it was a lovely reminder that there's so many people out there doing the same thing as you. The majority have a similar sort of, everyone's cheering each other on. Everyone wants everyone else to succeed.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I would sort of recommend anyone. It's really, really hard to go to Edinburgh, really hard. And most people won't be able to manage it increasingly. I only could go because I was working another job there and was getting a weekly wage and had accommodation and travel sorted, so I could surf off the back of that. But if you can ever go, it's just a really good way of becoming inspired again.
Makes me want to go there.
Oh, you should. Have you never been?
No.
You've got to do it. Find someone's floor that you can sleep on.
Yeah.
Even just go for 2 nights.
Yeah.
See loads of stuff, see weird stuff, see free stuff. It's just, I will always be an advocate of it, no matter how hard it is and no matter how broken it gets. All of the best times of my life and all of my major opportunities in my career have come from that. Keep on talking about my career.
That's good.
It is, but it's this "Are you an artist?" question is just hanging over me. It's like, but what about the money?
That's next.
Yeah.
That's the next step. Why did you want to do an MA in anthropology?
It was definitely a lockdown decision.
What to do? Okay.
I think I had been a member of the Wardrobe Ensemble. Tom England did an anthropology degree for his BA at Cambridge, and he always spoke really highly of it.
Okay.
And sort of, I was looking for something. I had an itch to study again, and I'd had that for a while, and I wanted something that might feed back into theatre making, but also might open up some other doors to me. And I think it did do that. It definitely just made me cleverer, and I can feel it, which is really nice.
I wrote on my notes, anthropology, clever people, because I have a friend who is studying also anthropology at the moment, and I feel like all my friends who do that, they are just so clever.
Yeah, I've got issues with anthropology for sure. It was quite interesting coming in at such a late stage. There were a lot of people who had done a BA in anthropology, and then the course I studied was material and visual culture. So it's looking at stuff, the material world, as opposed to relations between people. And there's
stuff like this chair.
This chair, like I did one about landscapes. So it's like how we take in landscapes. And that could be like how we read islands, how we read the countryside.
Wow.
You've got like cities. I ended up doing my dissertation on community radio, and like place and how like community radio fits into it's surrounding like landscape, and it could be kettles, it could be sculptures, it could be art, it could be like literally almost anything. So it's very broad but very niche. But anthropology is always sort of, it has colonial foundations, and it is everything we ever learned. It felt like anthropology is always sort of slightly eating itself and trying to justify its own existence. So it was really interesting to come into something that late and have a taste of it, a big taste of it, and be like, I'm not sure this is the thing for me. It's in a lot of ways really frustrating, but it definitely impacted like my interests. I did a anthropology of religion module, and I went to church as a kid and I was confirmed when I was 12, but after that I have never been particularly religious, but I'm increasingly interested in like the role of faith in modern society. And it feels like, you know, the more into modernity we go, the less relevant faith becomes, but actually that's not the case.
No, it's really coming back also with the new age, different religions popping up,
and I've sort of had, you know, I've had a difficult couple of years. I've lost a few people, and that's really brought home the fact that you can be an atheist, but when something like that happens, when you lose someone close to you, it's very hard not to start to look to faith. And I've never sort of fully found it, but I think it's been a sort of case of like, what if, and wouldn't this be easier if I was able to be like, yes, okay, I do have a faith. And just being like, when you lose someone, like you find ways of connecting to them still. Like I lost one of my best friends, and then after that I kept on sort of connecting her with the weather. So it was like whenever there was a big thunderstorm or whatever, I would start to sort of feel like that was her. But yeah, I think that sort of, maybe it was already bubbling away, but that sparked a real sort of interest in the role of faith. And that's definitely like the next show that I want to make. And I guess that is like the "Are you an artist?" question. I guess maybe that is where I can confidently say yes, is that I have a burning question, and the way that I want to address that question is through art. Yeah, and it's this idea of collective effervescence, which got me really interested in faith, which I don't know if you've heard of.
Collective effervescence.
Collective effervescence. And it's basically like the feeling that a group of people will get when they come together and engage in something communally. And that is an argument for why religion's formed and why they're able to hold people together. Obviously, there's like a top-down sort of oppressive argument, but that doesn't explain why so many people of their own volition will come back week after week after week, which does definitely still happen and has happened forever. And it's that it like being together, doing rituals together, singing together, moving together, whatever it is, creates a sort of very specific feeling, a buzz. And I remember when I applied to drama school, you have to write your personal statement, and mine was all about the tingle. It was all about like the feeling that you have when you're watching an amazing piece of theatre in a room with everyone else. And I get these like shivers going up and down. And I think so it's obviously something I've been interested in for like half of my life. So yeah, that's what I've sort of landed on in terms of, and clearly there's many settings where we can feel that, like I want to make this play that is about faith, but is based around like a club soundtrack, because I've spent a lot of time going to clubs in my adult life. And that's clubs and festivals is where my version of where I feel that most strongly, a sense of being connected with people and a sense of like being like out of the world and free of worries and sort of operating on a more sort of ecstatic plane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For me, crowds of people make me anxious, and I've been to communities where you do like things together, but I always felt like it wasn't for me.
So where do you get that feeling?
So do you mean where it happened that I felt not, or
no? Where do you get the feeling of collective effervescence? Where do you feel like most connected to others?
A bit like you say, when I'm in the theater and I watch something with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But when there is enough space also for me to experience it as I feel, I think I just need some space.
Do you get it when you like dance with others?
It depends. So
depends how good they are.
No, it depends how much space they give to me, because if there is too much happening, I need a lot of like slow moments and listening.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a bit like the same when you act. If everybody's shouting or it's like you lose it.
Yeah.
But if there is, as I think you did very well in Moby Dick, there was, because before the other piece was a lot of shoutings and it was just too much.
Yeah.
In Moby Dick, you could really feel like it just flows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm sort of interested in exploring next. So like in an ideal world, I would love to. We've done a bit of it in the Wardrobe Ensemble, which is brilliant, and I would love in an ideal world to get people of different faiths together.
Wow.
And people of no faith and people
that
who
is
are
good, I think.
agnostic. I think which is where I am sort of sitting at the moment, and just sort of be like, what is faith to you? Like, do you think it's still useful? What is this feeling of collective effervescence to you? Can we sort of manufacture that on stage in quite a... Because it's all... I went to... when we were on tour with Moby Dick, we went to York.
Yeah.
And my granddad passed away when I was there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to York Minster, to the Evensong there, which is a big cathedral. And they do a service every evening. And... just like, again, not religious, but just going to give myself a bit of space for reflection. And it's so interesting how sensory it is. You're sat in this inner chapel bit and then the choir begin singing from outside. So you've just got this like swirl of sound, but you don't know where it's coming from. And then there's this procession, which is like really formulated. And obviously they're dressed up in these robes, which are there to impact you. And they've got whatever that thing is that has the aroma in it that they swing. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
But they've got this
thing.
Oh, yeah.
Incense or something.
Yeah. And they walk that up the aisle. So there's this sort of really powerful smelling smoke hitting you. And then the arrangements to the songs are beautiful. And you're in this amazing cathedral where like light coming through the stained glass windows. And it's all sensory. So I think I'm really interested in, like, can you detach that from religion, and can you sort of recreate that in a theatrical, which obviously you can, because theatre's doing that all the time, but can you invoke this like powerful sense of spirituality without a belief in a higher power? Or is there like a fundamental thing about that, like belief in a higher power that enables you to feel something more? I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I need to ask you, but we don't have that much time, so quick responses. What is your strength?
What's my strength? My strength is listening.
Very good.
Sometimes.
What would you like to be better at?
Dancing.
Dancing? What's your relationship to your body?
I love moving. I'm 32 on Saturday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I feel like, coming into Moby Dick, I hadn't done much movement for a long time, and I was really rusty. And it took me a long time to get it back. And I'm not getting any younger. So I think, dancing, moving, I want to find a way to because my pattern throughout all of my 20s is be on a job, be really active, be off a job, be completely sedentary.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to find a way to sort of
in between
keep that going and enjoy moving and make that form a habit, because if I don't, I'm going to regret it when I'm 50.
Anything that scares you?
I think being sort of incapacitated more than dying actually now. Being alive but being sort of incapacitated in some way, whether that's unable to move, that's being... do you know, it's getting old. It's getting old. I've watched a lot of my relatives get very old over the past few years. And it's, you know, it's really tough.
Yeah. If you were an animal?
A rat.
A rat?
Yeah.
Wow. Why?
Because I get told I look like a rat a lot.
Oh.
There's this game, Rat or Frog.
Rat or frog? So either you're a rat or you're a frog?
Everyone either looks like a rat or frog, and
so I'd be a rat too, no?
I think you're a rat. Yeah.
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 What's a frog look?
I think frogs generally have more maybe more bulging eyes, and I think it's usually sort of wider features. Yeah, so when you do that, you're a bit more of a frog, but you're quite ratty, and I'm very ratty.
Do you have a favorite color?
Purple.
What makes you happy?
Being with people close to me.
And do you feel like you know yourself very well?
More and more, yeah. I think I know myself now better than I ever did. I know myself better now than I did a year ago. And I think that is actually I was really not up for entering my 30s. I did not take it well. But now I'm approaching 32, I'm like, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. When you get into your 30s, you start to just settle into yourself a bit, and you can start to be a bit more aware of yourself, because I've been through many situations now many times, so I can more and more start to like notice my own reactions and why I do them, and start to try and improve on the times where I'm like, that's the habit that you've got that isn't so useful.
Do you think you'll have a crisis when you're like 40 or 50? And you'll just be like...
I am certain I will. I reckon it's coming at some point. 40, I think I'm okay with.
Okay.
I was with my friend who's 41 yesterday.
That's fine, yeah.
And his 40th birthday, he paid for a group of his friends for us all to go to this lovely private dining room and just like saw it in real style, and booked himself a lovely hotel, and it was like... That made me be like, okay, yeah, bring on 40. When you've got hopefully got a bit more financial security, and it's all about the people who you're closest to. 45 could be one.
What would you do?
What would I do?
Would you like just buy a car?
I would take all of my friends to Ibiza, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I went there for my 30th. So 10-year anniversary. We'll go back with much less stamina. But, yeah, we're all going to Ibiza.
Great. Do you have any coming project that you want to share?
I am performing in Oxford this Saturday on my birthday. So by the time this comes out, that'll be too late.
Yeah,
but
sorry guys.
That if any of you did come, then I hope you enjoyed it.
Or if anyone can travel to the past.
If anyone can travel to the past and you're listening to this, International House of Vape at the North Wall, Oxford, 20th of July, 8 p.m. Go back in time and catch us.
Yeah. Cool.
Because it's a show that I'm very proud of. But aside from that, nothing sort of public facing coming up really. Back to teaching
All
from
secret.
September. I'm actually very excited about that. I've had this great run of projects this year, 4 months of Moby Dick, which I just was with brilliant people and I loved, and all of these R&Ds coming up and a couple of other things that have really sort of fulfilled me, and that sort of made me feel like I've filled my tank and I'm excited to go and sort of teaching, because you sort of learn stuff about yourself when you're teaching if you're full like that. So that will be September to December. That'll be me.
Nice. Any last recommendation?
Any last recommendations? I went to see Spirited Away yesterday at the Coliseum Theatre.
Okay.
Do you know Spirited Away? It's a Studio Ghibli animated film. And they've adapted it for the stage.
Oh.
And it's really faithful to the film, but it's so joyful, and the stagecraft is amazing, and it's just 3 hours of complete escapism. And I went in with low expectations and just had a lovely time.
Oh, that's what we need to do all the time, right? Is not to have any expectations.
Lower your expectations. Just assume everything is going to be terrible, and then you'll always be surprised.
Oh, that's...
it's sad, but it's true. Any time I go to something really excited, it will usually let me down.
Yeah.
So lower your expectations, everyone. That's my final thought.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
If you enjoy this podcast, please give it a 5 stars on your favorite platform. It really supports me, and then I can interview all the artists of the world until I die. Merci!